All right, so today we are going to be going over, we're going to be doing this lab here. It's pretty straightforward. The purpose of this lab is to obviously practice our graphing skills with Google Sheets, which we started on Friday. Okay, but also we want to start looking at one of the two graphs that we are going to be using in Science 10. Position versus time graphs. Okay, so this lab is going to allow us to get some data so that we can build a position time graph of the carts that we've got over here on the table. Okay, so what does a position versus time graph show you? Okay, well, just like it says, okay, it shows the position of the cart in meters as a function of time. So essentially, it tells you where the cart is. Okay, and from there you can figure out how far it's traveled, what its displacement is, as well as what its velocity is. Okay, everybody with me so far? All right. So when we're done this lab, and we've got our data and our graph built, what we're going to see, okay, for each cart is a graph that's pretty linear, right? Because these carts travel at a constant speed. Right? Once I start them, they don't accelerate. They travel at a constant speed for as long as they're allowed to travel. Okay? That means if they're traveling at a constant speed, they should go about the same distance every second. Okay? Because obviously the units for speed are meters per second, and this graph is showing where they are as a function of the time in seconds, right? So hopefully we're going to get a fairly linear progression. It's not going to be perfect because there's all kinds of factors that can interfere with the cart, but it's going to be pretty close to linear, or it's going to be very linear. Yeah, it's going to be pretty close to perfectly straight. Everyone following me there? All right. So what we want to be able to do is use our position versus time graph to calculate the velocity or speed of the carts. Okay, in this case, it'll kind of be both because they're going to travel in a straight line. So we'll be calculating their velocity, which will actually be equal to their speed. Just velocity will be forwards, and speed won't have a vector. Okay, so if I've got all these data points, and I've got, a line of best fit that Google Sheets has drawn for me, how am I going to go about figuring out the speed of the carts? Find the slope of the line. It's not a bad idea, okay? Because really, what is the slope of the line telling me? It's telling me, okay, the rate at which I change my position over time. And the rate at which I change my position over time is meters divided by seconds, or meters per second. All right, now, is Google Sheets going to spit that out for you? Yes, it is. Okay, so I may also be asking you in the analysis to do a little bit of work with y equals mx plus b. Right? Since Google Sheets is going to spit that out for you, some of the analysis is going to have to do with calculating other things, like maybe how far would the car have gone if it was allowed to travel for 5 minutes, or how long would it take the cart to travel 100 meters, or things like that. Okay? So solving for other things using y equals mx plus b. All right, so that's the premise of the lab. Okay, so the problem, what's the relationship between distance and time of an object traveling at a constant speed? There are a few kinds of relationships. Okay, the kinds of relationships that we'll deal with, linear, okay, which means as one goes up, the other goes up. Okay, and exponential. Okay, an exponential relationship is a big curve. That means that as time increases, whatever's whatever's on the y-axis would go up exponentially. So if I doubled my x-axis, my y-axis would go up by a factor of 4. If I tripled my x-axis, the y-axis would go up by a factor of 9. Okay, it's exponential. It's squared or cubed or whatever it happens to be. Okay, other ones we could have, inverse. Okay, inverse is like linear, except it means that as the x-axis gets bigger, y gets smaller. Okay, so a linear relationship looks like this. An exponential relationship looks like that. Okay, or an inverse looks like this. Okay, you could also have inversely exponential. Okay, and then inversely exponential relationship is the inverse of that. It looks like this. Okay, that means that as time gets bigger, this gets smaller exponentially. So if I double this, this becomes 4 times smaller. If I triple this, this becomes 9 times smaller, and so on. Everybody follow there? Okay, so what you're going to be asked to do is identify which type of relationship it is, which, spoiler alert, we already gave away. Okay, so generate a hypothesis about the relationship between distance and time for an object traveling at a constant speed. All right, so if, and then statement. So the if part should tell me what kind of relationship there's going to be. Okay, if there's this kind of relationship between position and time, and we measure stuff about the carts, okay, as they go down the hallway, then what are we going to see on our graphs? Okay, now when I say what are we going to see on our graphs, I don't mean for you to say the same thing you said in the if part. So if you say, if there's an exponential relationship between these two things, then I'll see an exponential relationship. That's probably true, but it's also not very helpful. Okay, so what I want is an explanation of what it will look like. So my graph will have a curve that's going upwards, or a curve that's going downwards, or a line that's going upwards, whatever you think it's going to look like. Okay. All right, our variables. What 2 things are on our graph? Seconds and meters. Okay. According to what we're doing, which one depends on the other? Position depends on time. The longer I allow these carts to travel, the farther they will go. Okay, that's the way we're setting up the experiment. Okay, we are going to mark the position of the carts every 5 seconds. Okay, we have chosen the time interval. Okay, every 5 seconds for a total of, I think, 40 seconds. Okay, so we've chosen the time interval. We're going to measure the position of the cart at those time intervals. So where the cart is dependent on how long we have allowed it to travel. Everybody follow there? Okay, so you need to identify the variables, manipulated, responding, and then the controlled variables. Now, things that need to be controlled. Okay, obviously, one of the things that needs to stay the same through every single trial is not just the car, but the speed of the car. Okay, these carts travel at a constant speed. If they accelerated, our graph would look a lot different, and that's not what we're looking for. Okay, so these things travel at a constant speed. That is a controlled variable. Now, a mistake a lot of people make in this lab. We are going to run 4 different carts down the hallway, but we're not comparing the carts in any way. We just want to have 4 sets of data. All right? The manipulated variable is not the carts. I repeat, not the carts. Okay? Yes, we're running 4 different carts, but we're not comparing them in any way. Okay? Everybody follow there. All right, other things that need to be controlled. We're going to run all these carts down the atrium. Is that important? Yeah, okay. I'm not running one of them in the atrium, one of them outside, one of them up the hill, one of them down the hill. That would hardly be fair. Okay? All right, I've given you 2. You can come up with a third. Okay, so the procedure here says choose a member of your group to be the runner. We used to do this. We'd have people run or walk or crawl or whatever, but it's not consistent enough, so we're using the carts because they're consistent. Okay, so the procedure will work as follows. I will need people to be drivers. Believe me, these things actually need to be steered. Okay, a person who's going to mark the position of the cart, so a marker. Okay, they're going to use these little yellow sticky tabs, okay, on the floor, and a person who's going to be the timer. Right? So the person who's timing, obviously that's what you're going to do. Every 5 seconds, you need to tell the person with the little yellow sticky notes when to set these down. So you can go, 3, 2, 1 now, or whatever. You guys set up whatever system you want so that you're on track together. Okay? The person who's marking this kind of needs to walk beside the cart like so, with one kind of at the ready, and when he hears now, boom, he puts it on the floor right where the back of the cart was. Is it important to always measure the same part of the cart? Otherwise, we bring the length of the cart in, right? All right. So we'll have the big tape measure there. That'll be laid out along the atrium floor, and you just set this down, like basically right beside the tape. Don't set it on the tape, because then chances are it'll move the tape. Okay. So just set it right beside the tape as best you can. Carson. Well, we're doing this as one big group. Yeah, we're all going to have the same data. Okay. There's just really no other way to effectively do it. Questions on how that part's going to work? Okay, so I'll pick volunteers here in a minute for that. So for the rest of us, if we're not doing one of those jobs, okay, we'll have our, we'll be out there filling in our charts, which basically look like this. And I think I have a Google Sheet already set up for you, I believe. Okay, it already has time as the first column, yes? Yes, okay, and that's the way it needs to be. Then it's got a bunch of rows for the other carts. Okay, so we'll fill that in. It doesn't look like this one because it's set up in Google Sheets the right way for Google Sheets, so it's the opposite of this one. Okay, so like we said, we're going to be placing these down. We're going to place them right next to the tape, okay, and you're going to always measure from the front side, the back of the cart and the back of the tag. Okay. Everybody with me there? Because if I measure one of them from the back of the tag and one of them from the front of the tag, then I'm not consistent again in my measurement. I bring the length of the tag in. I bring in error in that way. So we want to make sure that we're always measuring the same way. Okay. All right. So once we have our data, then we'll come back here and we will we'll have you build your graph. You're going to have all 4 carts on the same graph. We looked at how to do that on Friday. Okay, and then you'll do your analysis. So for analysis question number 1, you'd show how you would calculate the slope of each car's line on the graph. Now, I realize Google Sheets is going to spit out the equation for you. I want you to show me how you manipulate that for the slope. Okay, so show me for each car that equation manipulated for the slope. Okay, that's what you have to do for question number 1. Okay, for number 2, using the equation for each car, calculate how far each car would travel in 150 seconds. Show your work. So I want to see the calculation for each car, okay, in your lab report. You can do that by typing it out, or you can write it on paper, snap a picture of it, and insert the picture. I don't care which, as long as it's in there. Okay, and then number 3, similar, using the equations for each car, calculate how long it would take each car to travel 100 meters. Show your work. All right. Fairly straightforward stuff, okay, using y equals mx plus b. Then you have your conclusion and evaluation. You don't have to do the class discussion. We'll talk about that in class when I hand back the labs. Questions on what we're doing? I have it on there, Friday, I believe, May the 6th. Okay. Okay, procedure-wise with the carts, okay, this is probably the last time these carts will get used. Okay, they've seen better days. A lot better days. Okay, there's 2 problems with the carts. They're dollar store carts, so you understand their quality. Okay, secondly, our floor in the atrium is a dollar store floor. Kind of. Okay, when they did the concrete, they didn't do a very good job. And you can actually see it when you look at it, kind of, you put your head down, you can see the glare, and you can see that there's humps and bumps and stuff all over the place in the lino. Okay, and that's because the concrete the lino was put on, okay, is also crooked. And so as a result, it does make the carts turn a little bit. Okay, we have to keep them in a straight line. We do that by gently adjusting their trajectory as they move. That is done kind of in the same way you dribble a soccer ball, okay? With just gentle nudging from the inside of your foot, not punting, okay? We're not punting the cart, okay? Just gentle adjustments, okay? A little tap with your foot will keep it on course, okay? Because like we said, that's the most level place in the school for us to be, where we don't disturb too many classes. All right, so if you're a driver, that'll be your job, basically to stand beside the cart like this and just kind of keep it between your feet and walk along with it. They don't move very fast, so you won't have any trouble keeping up, okay? And then the person who's marking, you kind of shuffle along beside and you put the markers down, okay? Just keep that in mind, all right? Okay, listen up here, guys. So, couple of things that need to go into your graphing lab report. Okay, first off, obviously the graph with all four carts in it, but also the data chart. Okay, so you can see here in procedure it says copy and paste your Google Sheets table and graphs here. That means both of these. Okay, so to copy and paste the table, once you get the table all filled in, before you go to graph it, okay, highlight all of it. Obviously, you don't need cart 5 because we only did 4 carts. Okay, and then just Control C, copy that, and put it over into your lab report right here. Control V, okay, and it'll move it in. Now, you'll see it does this sometimes. Okay, in order to fit it widthwise on the paper, it messes up the positioning of everything. That's not that big a deal. That's easily fixed by just kind of playing around with these. Okay, and okay, there you go. Okay, so you just make it right aligned, and then it all fits in there. Okay, but it will do that on you. So when it does that, just highlight the whole chart again and click right align, and then you'll be able to see all of your numbers and letters and everything else. Right. Then obviously from there you go back to your spreadsheet and you make your graph, same as I showed you the other day. Okay, you've got the rest of class, which is like 40 minutes, okay, to work on that. So you got lots and lots of time. You should be able to get close to finished in the time available.